Craig Budner, how are you?
I'm great, Mo. Great to see you.
Um, the three things we thought we'd talk about are during this pandemic. So we're going to get hyper specific around what to do now and share some really practical tools about what to do now. We thought about three big topics. How do you manage your relationships? Because that is really important right now. How do you manage your opportunities? When are things going to go back to being talked about being commercial and things like that, especially for industries that are getting hit really hard right now. And how do we manage ourselves as professionals to stay on top of our client relationships, our growth, and things like that, and not get distracted by all the influx of news and social media and what's going to happen next, water cooler kind of talk. It's so easy to go negative and to get distracted as opposed to helping our clients. So let's start with managing relationships. You know, when you've seen people that are insane top 99th percentile rainmakers, you've seen people that struggle in times of crisis. What do you think are the most important things for people to keep in mind when they're deepening, they have an opportunity to deepen relationships because of all the change? Give us your insights on what you think works.
Yeah, one size doesn't fit all, as you know, Mo. I mean, some people are very anxious and they don't even want to talk about even their own personal circumstances. But I found generally in the last couple of weeks that everyone is experiencing this crisis. They may experience it through a different lens. A quick example, in Asia, they actually are feeling like they're coming out of it a little bit. They had no reported cases, I believe, yesterday in the region this came out of, and so they feel like some of their efforts to stop the spread have declined, and because they're ahead of us, or the efforts haven't declined, the cases have declined. And because they're ahead of us, sometimes our Asia colleagues give us a perspective that is different from ours in the United States, where we appear to be ratcheting up some regulation on our movements and things like that. Most of us, like you and me, are working in our homes right now. And I think the key is to connect with people at their level at this time. They want to hear from you. They want to be on video with you. No one is expected to be dressed up right now, and no one is expected to have an environment around them that is professional. And so it gets everyone's guard down a little bit. So I think it's a wonderful time to reach out to your relationships who are usually friends. I mean, when you have a deepened professional relationship, it's usually becomes blended into a friendship in some circumstances. And so how you can help, some people are dealing with people they love close to them who are, I have a very close friend who has the virus and is struggling, and it's the people around him. And what can you do in a non-professional capacity to support folks? And of course, I assume we'll get into it, but also in a professional capacity. So whatever industry you're in, I'm in the legal industry, of course, marshaling the resources of your company or firm to provide answers to questions on things like, how do I operate if I can't have more than 10 people assembling at the same time? What if somebody reported sick at my office? How do we handle that? People are dealing with urgent, practical questions that are, I don't want to say existential to companies, but they could be, and they're afraid they could be existential. So how do you support that is a big part of what we're doing specifically right now.
So I want to double click on something because I don't know if you ever. I think we've talked about this idea of being unconsciously competent about something. I forget who came up with it. Somebody really smart wrote a
Mm-hmm.
whole book on it, and there's a curve that goes with it. But the idea is that you can be so good at something that you don't even realize what you're doing is a thing, or that can be deconstructed or taught to others. And Greg, you're so good at relationships that you just sprinted over. We should connect with people because to you it's obvious what to do, but I'm not sure to everybody it's obvious what to do. Because here's an example. We work with a bunch of healthcare companies in the United States, so they're being bombarded by having to reach out to their clients on how to handle what's going on from a healthcare plan perspective. They're working with plan sponsors. So they're working 80 hours a week doing that. Well, that's great. But but that's their day-to-day contacts. What about the people that are two levels above that they need to have a relationship with? What about that organization, that other line of business that they don't do work with, that they met one person in a meeting 3 months ago that they could expand to? They could get out of slice business and expand to another geographic area, another line of business. And they know they need to keep up with them, but there's no professional reason right now to do it. So what are your tips, or how do you go about reaching out to somebody when there's not the commercial or professional reason to right now, because we're all getting yanked into those for many of us? How would you reach out to somebody that there's not that, just to see how they're doing, or what would you do?
Well, now that we're a few weeks into this, a couple weeks at least, one great sales professional taught me the concept of a give to get, and we've developed a lot of give to gets in the legal world, and so reaching out to them with some products and some expertise on how to solve problems practically. Would this be of interest to you right now? A 50-state survey on the rules on gathering, and we're going to update that weekly or daily. Happy to share that with you. And then maybe that'll spark a conversation. But thinking about what tools might specifically apply. The other way, another principle that comes from the snowball system is reaching out and asking them questions, getting advice from them about how they're dealing inside of their organization, and saying, trying to understand a little bit better what they are experiencing, because, as you've taught me, Mo, you can't really pretend to help somebody or be able to help somebody if you don't actually understand what are their issues, what are the things that are on their plate right now, and starting these conversations to learn more. I've observed they're very welcome conversations right now. Some people are too busy to have them, but most this is new to all of us. I mean, I don't remember anything. I can't parallel this to any experience I've had in my lifetime. And I feel like most of our colleagues feel the same way.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think one thing that's so important about this right now, that I think a lot of folks who aren't sort of at your level of rainmaking, let's just say you're 99.5 percentile, you're at the top of the top. Statistics doesn't go much higher than that. You're really good. A lot of people don't understand that this is the time when things change, meaning this is the time when professional relationships change. This is the time when people make a switch from one provider or partner to another. And acting appropriately right now is really important. I'll give you a quick story, and I'd love your comment. I was coaching one of our clients that we do a ton work with. Somebody yesterday reached out and said, "Hey, do you have a couple minutes to talk?" And of course I do, right? They're really, really important to us. But this is a really granular level opportunity. And the issue is that the person that did a ton of work for an organization years ago, the organization went through a heavy procurement process and they down selected. This person wasn't in quite enough leadership role at the time to be able to influence how they went about the proposal. They did not win. Now it's a couple of years later, so they lost almost all their business. He has stayed in touch, and because of some other things that happened that he's been able to help happen, he now has an audience with a person a couple levels above the people he knows, and they want to have a meeting. And we talked about going through dynamic meeting prep. What's an effective goal for that meeting? What's an effective frame? How can you sort of give that frame to some of the folks that are your friends now to see what they think, so they get real excited about it, build everything together from Snowball System and Grove. And how can we, A, make sure that meeting happens, and B, use it as an opportunity to not just talk about winning something, but maybe have a conversation about reevaluating their entire relationship with this person that on the other end, I'm sure is worried about cost right now because of everything going on, and being able, for our client, being able to work with them to potentially construct a new way of working together that could steer 10x the business that they've been able to gain back now. So my point with that sort of long-winded story is most people, I think, would approach that meeting like, oh, let's just get to know each other. But he's got an opportunity to frame that meeting to say, hey, this, I'm sure you're worried about cost because of what's going on in the pharmaceutical industry. And how about we work on a really simple 3-step process to see if we can save you a lot of money for some volume of work so we both win, and engaging in that conversation. He loved it, and now he's practicing that, and he's going to circulate with his friends and things. So I say all that to say that I think now is a time where if we act the right way, that we've got opportunity to not just retain business, but immensely grow. So what
Yeah.
are your thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I think it's a classic, what you and I have discussed so many times. Start small, start very practical, with a nuanced understanding of what your client wants in this situation right now. And remember, the goal is to show them how you work and give them a replicable example that will give them an indication that after this pandemic ends, which it will end, we will get an antiviral, it will end, and we will go back to business as normal. And how will, wow, they look back and they say, you know, when I was at my lowest low in the company, worried about the impact of this pandemic, Susie came in and pitched me and showed me how they work. I would love to see more of that now that we're back to normal, and then Susie can grow market share in the new world and back to the normal era. And I think that's exactly showing people how you work right now, and how effectively you can work. And in some cases, what people could afford 3 months ago, they can't afford today. So there's some value propositions. There's some opportunities to show that you can be more efficient and be a more sustainable provider in the new world once this pandemic ends. I hope that answered it.
Oh, it nailed it. Yes.
Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. For more content like this, check out my most recent video and be sure to like them so other people can find out.